Hello everybody, my name is Emperor AP. Thank you for watching another video on the Empire of Aeternia, and today we are going to be talking about that's right. Today we are going to be talking about our third installment of the Micronational Economics series. It's a series that's been more popular on the channel because I feel like there's not a lot talked about on it. So far we've already covered why you need an economy and the starting steps for how to create an economy, but now we're going to get into a little bit more specifics. So if you haven't seen those videos, you can go and check them out. The links will be in the description of the video, but for those of you who've already seen those and want to know about specifics, we're going to continue today with
money, 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 money.
And why micronations need currencies, what the importance of them are, and the different ways you can go about setting up a currency system. The first one I'm going to just start right off the bat with is no currency. That's right. You can start off a micronation and have a micronation that's fully formed and fine without a currency. The main problems with a no currency system, the main problems are one, that you won't be able to collect a tax on that. So taxes are something that we'll get back to, and those become important in a currency-based system, primarily because it's a great way to fund your economy. It's a great way to pay for anything that you need and to actually increase loyalty to the economy that you've created and to help get it to be more and more self-sustaining as you grow it. Another disadvantage to a no currency economy is the fact that it's hard to determine what things are worth. The good news about it, on sort of a flip point with that, is that things are worth whatever people will pay for them. That's the same way that it works in all economies, whether you have money, whether you don't. However, for a bartering-based system, is another word for it, another term, in a bartering-based system, people just have to go on what they have. And if I have something that you want, but you don't have anything that I want, we can't barter. So in a system like that, things may go by very slowly. However, the benefit of a currency, which is why most people tend towards some sort of currency in their economy, is that a currency can act as sort of an IOU or a middleman between the thing that I want and the thing that you want. So if I have something that I can sell to you and you have a currency, despite the fact that you don't have anything that I want inherently, I know that if I can use that currency to buy things from other people that I want, I'll go ahead and trade you whatever I have for a set amount of that currency that I know somebody will accept for something else of a similar value that I want. So that's why these currencies are so important. But the benefits to having no currency at all can be creativity. If you really decide to go that route, it is a unique route, and it is something that's interesting and sort of creative in the way that you develop your micronation. Also, I'm just sort of pointing out Gary is crawling all over my Doc Brown here. He's really getting him. But anyway, off the sidetrack of Gary exploring. With these micronational economies, when you have a currency, when you have something that's set up, people feel kind of rigid in it because they've invested their own money in it, they've invested their own time and efforts in it, so they feel very nervous about investing or spending or things like that. It can happen that way. However, with bartering systems, a lot of the time you'll find people are much more generous and people are more accepting of trying to get that bartering going. So they'll be more willing to give up certain things or to create certain things in order to find what they need in this economy as well. So that's one of the big benefits. It sparks creativity. It can help to get things going really quickly. The problem is you may see difficulty down the line because as your micronation grows and grows and as your economics become more and more complex, it becomes extremely hard to do anything with that. People can, of course, donate to the government of your micronation things that they have and things as sort of a tax if you really wanted to set that up, but it'd be difficult, it'd be hard to keep track of, and you couldn't really enforce it. So if you choose to go on a barter-based economy, without a currency, you essentially need to understand that you're going to have difficulties in the way of infrastructure, in the way of creating taxes, in the way of the development overall of growth. However, you will absolutely have a great way to start off. If you decide to transition, that's wonderful. So for all micronations, if you don't know where to start at all, if you're flat on the ground, you have no idea where to start and how to go, a great way to start economic movement is trade. It's also a fun thing for people to do, to feel like they're trading with a nation, or trading inside of a nation, or trading from their macronational a macronational entity, if they're not a part of your micronation yet, into a micronational entity and with another country. It's just an exciting concept. So sparks a lot of creativity. I would definitely recommend, if you don't have anywhere else to go, if you don't have any other concept for a way to get the ball rolling, a barter-based system is a great way to go. Now, the other side of the coin that I'd like to talk about is a currency-based economy. One where you either use a micronational currency or a macronational currency. And this is sort of the real divide and the real difference between, or I should say within, currency-based economies. If you have a currency-based economy, you can choose to either use a macronational currency, so if you're in the US, using the US's currency, and there are benefits, pros and cons to using a macronation's currency and using a micronational currency. So for a macronational currency, the benefit of that is to get things going. Like we talked about with the barter-based system, people are less nervous about committing to a barter-based system because they already have the goods that they are able to sell or able to give, and they know what they can give and they know what they're not comfortable giving. So by that same logic, in a currency-based system, people, in a macronational currency-based system I should say, people are more willing to trade and to open up because they already have that currency. They're already familiar with it, they know its worth, they feel its value. And especially if you have like a strange exchange rate between your macronational currency and micronational currency, there can be a little bit of worry and a little bit of hesitation with people who aren't familiar with using those types of currencies or those exchange rates. That's kind of a tangent. With a macronational currency, you have people who use it already, people use it in their everyday lives, and so if you sell products, goods, services, if you want to take a tax from your citizens or from people who purchase goods within your micronation from a macronation, if you're creating trade alliances, whatever, you can always set up a tax. You can always set up a way for you to continue to gain money from these people who are using this currency they're familiar with, and it's completely fine to do that. So similarly related to the barter-based system, a macronational currency-based system is easy to get the ball rolling on in comparison to a micronational currency. So easiest by far in this tier list to get started, to make people comfortable with exchanging and actively participating in your economy, barter-based economy. However, pretty early on you're going to start seeing some trouble with a barter-based economy. So easiest to start, hardest to continue, or hardest to grow. Easiest to start off, hardest to grow, barter-based economy. Second thing, the easiest to start within a currency-based system, but the more difficult to expand upon and to change and to manipulate in the ways that you need to be successful is the macronational currency route. Like I said, everybody's used to using their macronational currency. I'm used to using the US dollar. People in other countries are used to using what they're used to. But the problem there is you can't do as much with it. What I mean by that, you can't use a macronational currency to isolate your economy. And you would say, oh, well, isolating my economy sounds like a really negative thing and a really difficult thing to help the growth of my micronation. If I'm cutting off my economy, I've lost my economy. Well, but there are benefits to isolating an economy to a degree. You don't want to cut yourself off from other nations because then it's almost impossible to get started. You're absolutely right. But if you have something valuable, the benefit to slightly isolating your economy is that you can create a boundary. You can set up a design in which if you create a micronational currency, you can only use that micronational currency, that's your currency, in order to buy goods in your nation. So that means investment in your economy. If I can use macronational currency to purchase things in your economy, that means I don't have to have any inherent investment in your economy. If you have something that I'm interested in, if you have something that I like, that's great and that's wonderful and I can buy that. However, if for whatever reason your economy does slightly poorly or has some difficulties with it in the start, there's no reason for me to invest. If you don't have something I like, if you don't have something that I'm as interested in, I just don't have to purchase from you, and there's no reason for me to. Especially with large corporations out there, larger entities that can supply someone's needs and take care of someone's needs very easily. So, what creating a micronational currency can do for your economy is to design it in a way that when people want to buy something from you, they have to first invest in your micronational currency. So whatever the exchange rate might be, what I would recommend to start, especially if you're not super familiar with economics, is a 1-to-1 ratio. So a 1 unit of your currency to 1 unit of said micronational currency. That's a pretty fair exchange rate, and it also keeps things simple for people to understand. It helps to keep the value up of your currency as well. So the idea behind that is if I want to buy something in your micronation that costs $5, I need to first purchase or create an exchange of 5, say, US dollars to 5, say, Aeternia notes. That's one of the things I wanted to bring up as well. Aeternia, for these examples where we talk about micronational currency, has its own currency. It's called the Aeternian note. And the Aeternian note, as shown here, thank you for enjoying my beautiful design there, but the Aeternian note has some specifics about it that I'd love to cover in a video talking about how to design micronational currencies. It'll be another specific video. I don't think it'll be on the micronational economies. It'll be more set on cultural creation, so if you like that sort of aspect of designing a micronation, creating it, helping to create the culture, go check that out at some point. But with our Aeternian notes, one thing that is important to note is that it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So if someone wants to buy something worth $5 in my country, they have to put $5 into my currency. I give them 5 Aeternian notes, and then they can spend those 5 Aeternian notes on said product. The good news about that is, so I haven't inherently made any money in that transaction because they had to, well, technically yes, if I've set it up, I've made a profit, a slight one, but in the transaction I didn't inherently make any money. So the benefit to having this system, despite the fact that in and of itself it's not profitable, unless you sell something that's profitable, is that you're still creating a buffer between your economy and macronational economies. So when you do that, that's the reason that lots of countries have exchange rates, that's the reason that lots of countries have their own currency, is because you want to make sure that you have reserves of other countries' currencies, whether it's micronations or macronations. If someone wants to purchase and wants to trade and wants to have access to the goods in your country, it's extremely beneficial for them to have to invest in your country if the things that they need are valuable, or the things that you provide, rather, are valuable. Because that way, if I say, ooh, I know I'm going to be shopping in Aeternia a lot, I know that they have things that they'll sell me cheaply or in bulk or what have you that I want to keep investing in, instead of buying 5 Aeternia notes at a time every single time I want to buy something, I'll just invest a lot of Aeternia notes. And that way I have my reserve of Aeternia notes that I want to spend. And the Aeternian infrastructure, the Aeternian economy, gets that amount of bulk money that they have in their exchange rate, in their macronational currency. So that way, in the case that there is any trouble with our economy, in the case that there are any dilemmas with that, we have a reserve of macronational currency to base the worth of our micronational currency on. And as well, it helps us to be able to then turn around and use that macronational currency to invest in purchasing goods, in funding our economy, in helping to pay citizens who help us with work and things like that. And as well, if you can commit your citizens and if you can design it correctly, you can also potentially pay them in your currency, so long as you have that agreement set out beforehand and they understand that. You, of course, want to be respectful of the people you're working with. But that's the whole idea of this, is if you can create your own economic system, which micronational currencies are fantastic for. If you can create your own internal economy, you're creating a machine which will eventually start to work for you. The more you can get into your reserves, the more you can make it a valuable commodity for people, and the more you can get repeat use and loyal people to invest in your economy, the more it will produce for you and the more steadily it'll produce for you. So that's the main reason for the separation between these 3 types of economies, which I've given off for the basics. If you want something, because if you look back at it, you can see the ways that you can transition. So you don't have to just stay firm to one of these economic models. In fact, what I would recommend is that you actually transition through them. If you have no idea where to go, you have no idea how to start, the very first thing I would recommend is a barter system. Get a few friends, get people together who are citizens of your micronation. Say, okay, I will start to trade you things. I have these things which I'm happy to give up to you for whatever you want to trade me back for them. And we'll start this trade partnership where every once in a while, on a set day or a set week or whatever, we'll have a little market where we will trade things back and forth. And the more people we get into it, the cooler it'll be, because we can trade back and forth little items, little trinkets, little things that we find valuable, whatever it is, we'll all bring them to the market, and we'll end up with something in return, something new, something interesting that we found that we wouldn't have had access to before, and potentially at a pretty cheap rate. The next thing that you can then transition into is using macronational currency. So if you have all these people who are coming into this thing, and you have all these different exchanges, and you want to put out credit, if you want to design a way where, say, I don't have anything one day to bring to the market, but I still want to acquire things because I know that later on other people in that market are going to want those things as well, besides, of course, maybe the person who sold them. But if I still want to amass the things that come to the market so that I have more valuable goods to then turn around and sell later, what I can do is I can set up a system where I say, hey, guys, I'm sorry I don't have the money for this right now, or I don't have anything to trade you right now, but I'll pay you for it. I'll pay you this rate, which people will most likely be glad to accept. And that way you can start amassing a little bit of these valuable goods. On the opposite hand, you can always recommend that to other people. If you have something that's incredibly valuable, you can say, hey, well, I'll sell it to you for X amount of money. Always be reasonable in your prices, because otherwise you're not really creating much benefit for yourself if you can't actually make the sale, if people aren't willing to trade with you because your prices are too high. But if you keep things reasonable, if you set it up right, you can transition from a barter economy to a macronational currency economy. That opens doors for you. That means that market that you've now created, that group of people who are loyal to this interaction, this trade agreement that you've all sort of made together, will keep coming back and will keep working with it, because one, they know they can find new things out of it, and two, now they know they can make money from it if they really work at it and if they find things that are valuable. So they all come together, they start creating this market, they start trading, they start developing. Then you can eventually say, okay, well now there are a lot of people who are interested in this market. Now there are a lot of people who seem excited about this and want to get into trading, want to get into making money because they've seen other people in our little circle make a little bit of profit or talk about it or just enjoy it. Make it a fun thing for people as well. If you have a favorite type of music that your group enjoys, get that music together. Start enjoying the space. If it becomes a big enough thing, have snacks, do things like that people will enjoy continuing to come back, especially among friends. Just have fun with it. So always have fun with it. Always make sure to introduce your micronational culture into it. Have your flag there if you have a flag. Talk about the culture of your micronation. Try and introduce people and try and make them feel welcome in that space, that you're creating this micronational trading center in. You're creating your own trade hub there. Going from bartering then to a monetary system, people will be interested and people will start to get attracted to it. So then that's when you say, hey guys, well, we don't just want everybody to be a part of that. We want to sort of isolate it so that we can have this system that is unique to us, and that if people want to join it, they very well can, but they have to invest in it. They have to agree to the same ideals and the same purpose to this trading center as we do. We want to have it a thing that is respected and is cared for and will grow over time. So the best way to do that is to then create a micronational currency, a currency that can only be used in that trading hub, a currency that can only be used in that design parameter. And then if you say create businesses or do things that are more complex outside of that little trading hub, if you start to develop yourself in that trading hub really well, you can eventually start to amass micronational and macronational currency, and start to back your micronational currency off of that macronational currency. And I know that's quite a bit to follow, I know that's quite a bit of a process, but the whole reason I explain it is to say that bartering system gets you off the ground. That bartering system is a great way to have your jump start in micronational economics, transitioning to an ease in development of any sort of economy, with a macronational currency-based economy, then finally with a micronational currency-based economy where you have this full control over your economy now. People come in, they invest, you have backup reserves of money, macronational money that you can use to grow this thing while you continue to send out what are essentially called lines of credit with your micronational currency. It's an even exchange. It's not that you're loaning people this money, but you're creating a middleman. So as your micronation develops into something that's a lot more complex and has all of these different potential variables in it, going from a barter economy to something where you not only have this trade network between people, but it's a trade network based on different prices, based on different evaluations of the value of something. People feel more and more safe with this sort of middleman, with this micronational currency, because they, one, feel like they have something that they can invest in. Two, they feel like that investment always has a safety net for them. Like I said, that middleman. They know that they can always go and get their money back if need be because they have this exchange rate. And that's a very important point to bring up, that if you create an exchange rate for your micronational currency, if you expect people to invest in your micronational currency, you have to make sure that it's something that you stand up for as well and that you believe is just as valuable as you say it is. So if you say create a micronational exchange rate like the Empire of Aeternia has, where one note is equal to $1, if someone brings you their Aeternian note, you should have a US dollar ready for them, and you should feel comfortable doing that because you have to value your currency at what its price point is. Going back to that, when you develop this micronational currency, when that's your third step, when things are starting to get more complex, if you have businesses running off of this, if you have individuals who have invested in your currency, if you have a trade network going on between yourself and people in your micronation, or your government and your micronational citizens, whether you have trade going on between yourself and your micronational citizen. So when you have trade that's set up between yourself, so when your micronational economy becomes more and more complex, when you have businesses in your micronation running off of your own micronational currency, when you have private citizens in your micronation invested in your micronational currency, and when you have trade with other micronations or with people in macronations who have invested in your currency and which you have reserves of their currencies and things like that, you have to understand that there are specific ways to go about it and specific ways not to go about it, because you want people to feel safe in your currency, you want people to want to invest in it, and you want it to grow. That's the whole idea of this, is to make it more and more influential, make it more and more valuable, and to make the space in which it's used more and more desirable for people to come in and want to participate and enjoy themselves and to feel like it was a good investment. So with that being the case, we're going to cover some notes. So with that being said, we're going to cover some notes that are general concepts beyond the 3 stages of this. One, of course, just as a refresher. And of course, just as a refresher, one being our barter economy, starting there for the most creative purposes and the easiest maneuverability as far as... So all that being said, now we're going to go over some notes that are just general explanations of things that you want to keep in mind when you set up this system. Just to recap though, our system that we set up for someone just starting out, blank slate, if this is your introduction to creating micronational economics and developing them for yourselves. The other 2 we sort of talked in general about theory, concept, ideas. This is one of the first videos to really talk about putting it in practice. I hinted at it in the last video. This one we're describing processes. So if you're brand spanking new to it, this is your first run at it, and you want to make sure you go the safest route as possible, what I would personally recommend is going the route of the barter system. Trying to get people to want to trade things, want to bring things to the table that they enjoy and that they have that they would like to trade. That way people feel invested already, they feel like they're going to get something out of it, they feel like they walked home a little bit richer that day, because they did. Going from there, you then have a system, that was our barter system. You then have a system of exchanging actual macronational currency, where people will always have something that they find valuable from another person. There will always be that roadblock of, oh, well, I don't want what that person has to trade, or I don't want what that person has to trade for this valuable item that I have. However, I'll always take money for it, I'll always sell it, and that's fine. So that becomes that more complex system, the macronational macronational currency-based economics, and then your micronational currency-based economics, where you have a buffer, your own micronational currency, that is valued in some other micronational currency, or preferably a macronational currency, that people feel safe and comfortable using, and that creates a system in which people must invest in your currency in order to get the value that your market brings to them. Sort of like when you have a Sam's Club card. Can't shop at Sam's Club without a Sam's Club card, or if you're in other parts of the country. I know there's I'm trying to think of the other ones. It's like a bulk retail store, essentially, where you can buy things in bulk for a cheaper price than you could comparatively at other stores. So you need special membership for that. This is your special membership for your micronational economy, for people to be able to use that. So, all that being said, having covered that, having gone over that, having that little TLDR, we're now going to talk about notes. When you have this micronational economy, things are going to start to get complex. Once you get to that second and third tier, things are going to start to develop in ways that are hard to keep track of. And if you're just seeing these things go by, you can very well get tripped up, or someone may, wanting to believe everybody's honest, somebody may find a way to kind of cheat the system, or people may find a way to undermine and accidentally undervalue the economy. So you could end up in a situation where before you know it, your currency is devalued and you don't know how it happened. And the primary way that that can happen is if you're not keeping track of who has your currency. Now, this becomes difficult if you start amassing 1,000 people using the currency, 2,000 people, 10,000 people. But as we'll talk about in our cultural creations of how to develop and design micronational currencies, for this specific section, we're going to talk about essentially just stages. When you first start out your micronational currency, it's probably a good idea to just have it set up where if someone purchases your micronational currency, if you create your exchange rate where someone gives you a certain amount of money for a certain amount of your micronational currency, keep a record of it. Take down their name, take down their phone number, email address, whatever, write down the amount that they had, the amount that they gave you, the amount of micronational currency you gave them. And that way, if they come to spend it with you, they have it set up. And if they give it to someone else, if they for whatever reason have a friend who wants to join and they decide to give them some of their micronational currency, they need to tell you so that you know how much they have left, how much that person has, who that person is, that they've invested, things like that. Going into the second part, if things get a little more complex and you have even more people as a part of your micronation, then it's hard to even take down the names of all the people who have your currency, because it may have been passed down from one person to another person to another person to another person without you ever realizing it. So that being the case, an easy way to continue that, if it's at all possible to continue that, depending on what stage you're in, depending on how large your economy is. This is talking about even for micronations, even for well-developed micronations, this would be getting into a pretty big size. But if you get into a larger size, if things start taking off for you, which is fantastic, another safety measure you might want to put in is sort of an online database. If you can have people who have the currency essentially have a secure way to sign up and register and have a specific amount of money that you know that they have from you or from someone else, that they can specifically design that. The way that that would work is someone would come to you physically, purchase some of your currency, or say online, purchase some of your currency under an account name, all this stuff. They would have that amount of currency in their account. If it's physical currency, it'd just be a record of it. If they wanted to trade it with someone else, that other person would have to create an account, their account would have a balance of 0, and then you would design a way within this online system of allowing the person with the currency to transfer some of it to someone without it. That being the case, if you could do that, kind of like a PayPal type thing, if you could do that, then it would just subtract from that person's and add it to another person's. You would be able to see where that currency went, you'd be able to see how it took place, that someone else has that currency, and you'd have record of it. That's for a larger system, and it still works in the same way, that if someone that you don't know, tries to hand you a certain amount of micronational currency that's your currency, and you've never seen that person and you don't know where they got this money, you may not be able to accept it because it could be fraudulent. So that's an important thing to note, is that, well, is your money easy to print? And that's something else I want to talk about. But those are safety measures to make sure you know who has your money, how it works out. Now, going back to that point, your money, depending on how you design it and how you can create it, could very well be printed by someone else, especially if you put the pictures out online of it. It's not too difficult if someone knows you, if they're in close communication with you, to just print out a certain amount of your currency and then say, oh, well, now this is valued at whatever it is. So, like we talked about, having record of who has your currency is important, because that way you know what's going on. You know who's supposed to have it and who you should accept it from, how much you should accept from them. As well, the important thing to note about that is if you create a currency, you can put protections into the currency itself that allow you to be safe about it, to know that it's harder and harder to counterfeit it. For example, on Aeternia notes, it's hard to see it, and you can't really see it very well, but my actual signature is on the Aeternia notes. It's very clear, it's very hidden on it, but if I check carefully enough, I can see that, and on the photos of it that I posted online, on the ones that I posted in this video, you can't actually notice where that is. It's not in that design, but it is in our personal bank designs. So that's one small safety precaution that we put in there. It's also just part of the design, so that's something to keep it safe. However, even that, to somebody who values your currency enough, especially if it's largely traded, if it's something that's very successful, again, props to you if you've done that. If people are willing to really put the effort in, they can still counterfeit that. They can still find ways around that. So that's at the point where you would either need to be really good at designing this currency and have access to a lot of printing techniques on your own, or you need to go to a print shop. At that point you can do it online, you can do it at a local print shop, but you need something ideally that you would check under a black light or have maybe an RFID tag, something in it that would be have a barcode on it, something that would be easily recognizable and trackable to further deter the counterfeit of that money. So that was talking about keeping track of who has your currency. Then if that gets overwhelmed, making sure that you have good anti-counterfeit measures in place. The final thing that I want to tell you about your currencies is enjoy them. When you create a micronational economy, it's supposed to be something that's fun and something to help promote your nation. So if you're looking at it in a way to try and get as much money out of people as you can, or trying to become wealthy off of it, I guess. One important thing to note if you're trying to do that is you can't really become rich off of micronations, or at least nobody has yet. The important thing about it is you need to make sure you're going about it for the right reasons, because micronational economics, micronational anything, is about trust. You're saying, hey, I have an idea, I want you to express your ideas to me, and we want to create something new out of it. So there has to be trust there. For trust, you have to set up a system that's honest and open and good intentioned. Not only good intentioned, but well executed. If there's ever a problem, you need to address it, you need to correct it, and you need to be forthcoming with that information. If people want their money back, you need to give them their money back. You need to be respectful and approachable about all things in this economic system, because you want people to come back to it, and because you want to show that you care about the people who are caring about what you want to do and the way that you want to go about it. So with all that in mind, please let me know what you think about what I said about all this. Do you think the designs that I've set up are reasonable? Have you tried out the system that I lay out? If you do, please let me know how it works. That system, that sort of three-step plan, if you will, is something that I'm personally wanting to try with the Empire, and I want to express that with you at some point. I want to be able to show you how the progress of that has changed, who we've gotten involved, how we've done it, and what the success rates are, what the things that we need to update are. But please try it yourself. Let me know what you think. If you've done similar things in the past, let me know how those go. Talk to me in the comments about it. And ultimately, if there's something that you feel like I forgot in this video that I didn't talk about, or that a unique insight that you had. I know some people are going to say, I've always stuck with a barter economy, and that's always worked for me. That's fantastic. Let me know how you did it, and I can make an amendment to this video. If you have always been in a micronational currency-based economy, let me know. Let's talk about that. Has it been successful for you? Were you able to get traction behind it? How did people come to invest in your currency? Did you have to do something to get them to invest, or did they just agree happily? Let me know how your experiences have been, because that's a big part of this channel. I'm just going to talk about this briefly, but whole big part of the reason that I started this channel, one, because I have this micronation that I'm starting and that I'm trying to create, and I want to show that and share that with all of you. And I feel like you're part of this, whether as a viewer, whether as a participant, whether a citizen. I appreciate you. But because there's not enough information about the way people go about these micronations, there's the Reddits that you can find, there's Discord servers that you can find, but people don't talk at length and people don't study in a systematic way how to go about setting up a micronation and what works and what doesn't, and how you grow and how you take it more seriously, more fictitiously. On this channel, we're focused more on the serious to a degree. We're focused on the more practical. But with all that said, I really appreciate you watching. I'm so glad that you're taking this journey with me, and I will see you next time for the update, the advanced, the brand new, and the exciting Empire of Aeternia. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time!